You're watching Coffee on the Coast Book Banter. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host today, Tina Prigge. I'm delighted because this is an episode of Book Banter. So we have Therese Horstketter here from the Manitowoc Public Library. Therese, welcome back to Coffee on the Coast.
Hi, nice to be here again.
I just have to admit, I'm always so happy when I see that it's going to be Book Banter on the calendar because I love talking books. Even before we went live, we were chit-chatting about books that we've read and comparing them and talking about them.
There's always more to talk about.
And one thing that got us talking, I'm going to put up this quote really quick. Viewers, let us know, do you agree? Good books don't give up all of their secrets at once. That's a quote by Stephen King. Therese, what do you think about that quote?
Oh, yeah, I would say that's a for sure. So many books do wait until the end, and that puts something great. It's nice when they start out with something to get you interested, but it's really nice when you get the surprises like midway in a book that you never thought something would happen. A character's all of a sudden gone or whatever. But yeah, it's nice when they're kind of spread out throughout the book.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know as I'm reading, I'm always kind of plotting ahead, trying to think, figure it out, work it through. And it's kind of nice when I'm not successful at it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When the book keeps
Yep.
me guessing and keeps me going.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Hey, there's good news. Let's tell our viewers before we jump into the book recommendations. There's a used book sale. A Friends of the Manitowoc Public Library used book sale. Finally, after 2 years, June 24th through June 26th. Anything you want to tell viewers about that?
Well, it is our first one since January of 2020. So we have missed 4 of them. We've had other things set up in the library, but this is our good old big Friends of the Library book sale. And so we are excited to be doing that, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy to hear that it's coming up. And we are having it for 3 days. We don't have a preview night, but we are having Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll be closing a half an hour before the library closes each day. And the other thing to know right away ahead, because we don't have an IT person that's with us during those days, we're going with cash or local check only. So keep
Oh,
that in mind when you're planning to buy. So, but otherwise, it's going to be our great, the book sale everybody's expecting.
yeah, I'm so happy to
Yeah.
hear that. Some of my favorite books I have found at the Manitowoc Public Library used book sale.
Yep.
Not books I'd even necessarily heard of, but they just jump out at you from the pile and
Right.
they sound so intriguing and they end up being a great read.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the price, you can't go wrong. We'll be doing Stuff a Bag on Sunday like we usually do. So when you do that for $4 and a lot of books you can put into a bag, that's a great way to have extras at home.
So here's a great idea, viewers.
Yes.
Start a little piggy bank, start putting a little cash in there, and then you can bring it to the used book sale and you'll be ready to go.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. So Therese is here because she's got some book recommendations. Let's start off. Therese, tell us about this book, Where the Forest Meets the Stars. It's a novel by Glendy Vandera.
It was a unique fiction. You can't really call it science fiction, but the idea is that there's a woman named Jo, and she's kind of living in a secluded area, not too many or people close by, and she has a girl come wandering in when she's cooking food outside, and a girl comes wandering over. She's pretty grubby looking, barefoot, some bruises on her, and says she's from another planet. Is the start of their encounter.
Okay.
And yes. And so she just figures, well, she's kind of goofing around and doesn't think as much of it, and that she's going to kind of wander away, which she does. But then she comes back again. And her idea, the story that she tells her again, and she tells her where she is from, up in the stars, and what her beings really look like when they're not in human form. She gives her quite a story, and Joanne, ends up helping her somewhat. She takes her in, she talks to a police officer, but nothing really comes of it. And she, it's somebody just wandering around, he doesn't make a lot of it. And
Mm.
then there's a gentleman nearby that is pretty secluded also, lives with his mother and is pretty quiet, doesn't venture out. He ends up befriending her because this girl who calls herself Ursa um, actually goes over to where he lives and ends up kind of befriending him and looking for help with him. And it's it's a rather charming story. It's also there's a lot of drama involved with this girl and with each of the main characters. Joanne is there, kind of she's had a serious illness. She's lost her mother in the past year or so, and this gentleman also has, his name is Gabe. He also has quite a background, and with his mother and a rather forceful sister. And so things work around to try and help this girl, but these other dramas are happening at the same time.
Wow. So okay, the girl that says she's from the stars,
Yes.
is she looking for help? Is she trying to get back? Is she having like, supposedly trouble getting back to where she came from?
Her idea is that she needs to complete something here before she goes back, is the story that she gives them.
Okay.
So, as we say, as the secrets roll out,
I'm super intrigued by this premise. This is a book I want you to tell me
it,
the whole story right
yeah,
now.
yeah, I found it a very good story. We had, it was a book discussion, and even though, only so many people usually attend our book discussions, the books went out a lot, and we had a lot of good comments on the book that where they looked at the blurb and weren't sure if they were going to like something like this, and then they really did.
Mm.
So that was good. I think we have a lot of pros for this one.
Nice. How does this book leave you feeling when you finish?
I think in a good way. Hmm.
Nice. Yeah, the
Yes.
little blurb at the top says, a heartwarming, magical story that will
Mhm.
remind readers of a modern day, the snow child.
Oh, and see, I don't remember the snow child. I'm sorry to refer to that.
Yeah,
But
I'm sorry, I don't
but
either.
I thought but I thought this was it was a good read. Mhm.
Nice. It sounds like an awesome recommendation. I'm really excited about this one now that I hear about it. Cool. Okay, let's talk about totally shifting track. Let's talk about When the Emperor Was Divine, a novel by Julie Otska.
This one is a little unique in its way. This one is from 2003. The reason I ended up picking this one up is because the next book that we will discuss, I started reading, and then I read in somewhere on the book or in a blurb about it that people were waiting for it because of this book, When the Emperor Was Divine. I don't know that you have to read both because I haven't finished the second one yet. That one I'm started on, but this one has to do with a Japanese family living in Berkeley. And this is 1942, and Evacuation Order 19. There are all of a sudden signs all over the city. And the mother of this family starts packing, and she's packing for her children. She is burying certain things. She is, she gets rid of their animals, and then she just gets the kids ready to go the next day. And, but it doesn't explain anything to us at that point. Throughout this book, they are referred to as woman or mother, boy, and girl. You never hear their names. And I think the reason for it is that my feeling is that the author wanted them to be a generic family, but showing what the circumstances were with what they went through.
Oh,
Their
yeah.
father had already been removed from the house a couple of years before, and you don't even know right at the beginning. Um, you figure it out that they are a Japanese family and they are going to an internment camp. And so it's all about what happened on their way there, their stay, and when they return. So it's told in not necessarily different voices, but you'll realize who is telling it, that each of the three family members have a part in talking about what was happening during all of this. And I can't say it comes to a happy end just because of the circumstances. And I've heard the book called, I'm trying to think the words, sparse and unemotional. It's like the people are there are emotions, but they're not so outward. You just get it from the way things are expressed as they're happening. And yeah, the reason that I found this also was because the books are kind of short reads. This one has, let's see, sorry, have it here, 143 pages. And the next one that we'll discuss has only 129. And they were just in a group of books that I found that they were short reads if you wanted something quick. And you are involved, but they are not, I think because of that, you hear the neighbors' names. They'll talk about the neighbors, people running shops, but this family never has a name. And the father is called Papa. That's how you hear him referred to.
Interesting. So that device of not naming the characters, does that make the reader feel like they can kind of slip into that role? And you know what I mean? To empathize?
Right.
Can you envision yourself in that?
Right. I think it's almost like you're not judging the characters, you're along with them for whatever happens.
Yeah.
You're not having to learn so many different things about them. It will give brief descriptions of what they look like, but yeah, it's you still feel involved with this, but just in a different way. It was a very different read for me with it focused that way.
No, I haven't read it yet, but I imagine, is there a pretty important takeaway, or like do you learn something essential when you read about this time in history?
I think it's probably not anything new historically that you weren't so much aware of, but just the general path and travel that they had during this. And it's just kind of you are putting yourself there. You know, I think it lets you do that a lot because these people are not as well, fleshed out so much. And so you don't have an issue with, oh, she's always cranky, anything like that. It's just what's happening here mostly. There's some things about like the kids at school, and like I said, with neighbors, that they would name them and how these neighbors treated them, and at different times, leaving and coming back. So,
wow,
yeah,
it
it's
sounds
an eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's important to read too. I really do want to check it out.
Yeah.
So then you said that this is the first book and that there's a
Right.
follow-up. Let's bring that one up. So
And
this is the Buddha in the Attic.
Yeah. And that's the one that I started reading first. And then, like I said, noticed that the other one had taken place first. But this one has to do with the basic story is it is 6 Japanese mail order brides. And seeing what happens with them in the early 20th century. So they said people were waiting for her next book after the Emperor book. And so I thought, okay, I'll go back and read that one first, and then I'll finish, go back to this one and restart it. And this one is even less pages, and I don't know if the writing style is going to be quite the same or not. I only got to read a little part of it, so we'll see.
It's interesting that these big topics can be addressed in so few pages. So that's really interesting. And if you notice, viewers on this book, there's the seal that this won the Faulkner Award for Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to read what the blurb says because, this definitely makes me want to read the book. It says it's an understated masterpiece that unfolds with great emotional power and is destined to endure. I mean, that's really high praise.
Oh,
let's see.
I'm just seeing comments there.
Let's see what Kelly said. Oh my gosh, I read this one. Now I need to go back and read the other book. Okay, Kelly. So what Kelly's saying is she read The Buddha in the Attic. Kelly, it sounds like now that you know there's another one, you want to read it, which makes me think that you enjoyed The Buddha in the Attic. But maybe just let us know. Would you recommend other people read it? Nice. Wow. Okay, these are great recommendations. So let's now completely shift again.
Yes.
And let's talk about, this is a memoir, and it's called Comedy, Comedy, Comedy Drama by Bob Odenkirk. What should we know about this?
All I can say with this is, if you know him, you've known him from Breaking Bad and from Better Call Saul. And I saw him not too long ago because he just had a movie out recently where he said he finally got to play an action star, which is just kind of funny. It is. He has a different kind of comedy to himself. I'm in the middle of reading both of the memoirs because I love to put those on the side and read them in between books, or read a book for a while and then switch to a memoir for a while. And because you can hear their voices, it's just a nice change. And so that I have to say, I like him in anything I've seen, and I'm waiting to see what all comes out because just the way the title is.
I feel like I've seen him everywhere lately. So it's interesting.
He has been with, I think Better Call Saul is coming to an end. And well, Breaking Bad was big. That was around for so long, and he had parts here and there in it. And but he was a Saturday Night Live writer. He has a lot of a background before the shows we've seen him on. Okay. And so I think his is going to be very interesting. And
I think I saw the movie that he was in where he got to be kind of the action star. And it was really good. It was really enjoyable.
Yep, we saw two.
I just want to point out, so we were talking about The Buddha in the Attic, and Kelly Knowles said, yep, it's a small book, very emotional, leaves an impact. And she says, I would recommend this.
Yep, nice to know.
Okay, so you said you're reading another memoir, and I think that's Hello, Molly, a memoir by Molly Shannon.
I was just reading some of that on my break today, and I've been keeping that one here to read on during times like that. And it is, you can hear her voice in her writing. And if you like Molly Shannon from Saturday Night Live, and I know she's on another show, which I haven't gotten to see yet on Showtime. And she's been in at least a couple of movies. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but I love her. I just think she's so funny, and I can hear it at where I am in the book. She's talking about when she was little, there was a tragedy that starts the book and is mentioned already, like in the blurb, where there was a terrible accident where she lost a mother and two other her mother and a sister and another family member. And so, coming out of that, she doesn't talk a lot about that right in the beginning. She says what happened, but then she goes on with how she grew up after that with her dad and another sister. But it's funny, she talks about her friend and her best friend when she was younger, and I can just hear her saying all these things and seeing her do the things that she's talking about. And she has so much more to go yet in the memoir, but just the beginning is, I'm enjoying it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. So she was on Saturday Night Live. I do remember that.
Yeah,
But you mentioned
yeah,
that then that Bob Odenkirk, the other
yeah,
memoir, that he was involved with Saturday Night Live.
yeah.
Did their paths cross? Were they there like the same time?
I don't know for how long they may have been on at some time, because I would have to think back to what year she was exactly on there, but excuse me. But, yeah, she is just one of my favorites that was on there. And, uh, Mary Gallagher, Superstar. I don't know the people who will remember that from Saturday Night Live. Mary Catherine Gallagher. Have to get the name right. And she's in her school girl, the Catholic uniform, and which couldn't be really Catholic. It was so short. But anyway, and so yeah, it's just it's just reading, like listening to her talk and do something on TV that you can just picture these things happening.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
And I love memoirs when you get to understand how a person got to be where they are today,
right.
right? And it's interesting that she's so successful at in comedy, especially with such a tragic start like you described.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And not much more
Cool.
I have to say. She's
Cool. Hello,
yeah,
Molly.
yeah.
Well, okay, we've got one more book. Let's talk
Okay.
about The Day the World Came to Town. And this one just sounds fascinating from what I know about it.
It was a wonderful book. And I said, I, we discussed kind of the order we go, and I said this would be a nice one to end on today. I was not aware of this book until a week and a half ago, about, and I saw it in another department because a book group was going to be borrowing it. And it is what happened in Gander, Newfoundland on September 11th, when all the planes had to be set down, when they said no more planes entering the United States. So that is one of the last places that planes could set down or stop for refueling before a huge several hour trip over water before they came to the United States. And I had no idea about this. It was just amazing to me. They had, I don't remember how many planes, at least 50 planes full of people that landed there. And these people just, I believe they said it was a city of about 10,000, and they took in like 6,000 people. And the way they had to handle things, the people had to stay on the planes, wait to disembark, and they opened their homes. They opened as soon as they heard this was happening. They just, every church, every organization, schools, they cleared them out. They made places for these people to sleep. They dug out clothes. They got just people would say, our house is open for showers, whoever wants to come over. And they had to bus people to other towns. And the buses were on strike at the time. And they thought that's the only way we're going to do it. And the bus drivers came back off strike.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it is, there are some parts that um, I don't think it's going to really ruin anything to hear it, but they had people who had to sit on those planes for almost a day. They would not let them off the plane because they had to go through security, because you're dealing with people on planes where planes were just crashed purposely in the United States, and nobody knew who might be on any of these planes. So they had to wait. They were not allowed like to take their luggage off when they could disembark. But so they had people that were now going crazy for a cigarette, just sitting there. They finally let them like open the doors for the planes and have a cigarette. And the pharmacy pulled like 4,000 nicotine patches and sent them over to whoever need. There were just things like, 4,000 toothbrushes arrived. And they said, luckily they had a Walmart, and there was one other store, and I'm not remembering it, but that they had two decent sized stores that could supply things. But they said people just stripped their sheets and stuff off their beds to send them to the schools and stuff. And it's just, you have to read it, and there's a lot of names involved. And then, of course, you also had, unfortunately, people that were headed back, like to New York, and waiting to know if their families were okay.
Yeah.
So you really get a little of, not a little, you get a lot of everything. The people worried about that and trying to be in contact, and phones didn't work as well. And so there's the whole stress of that happening. But I was amazed. I had never heard of this book.
Or the situation, because this is a real
Yeah,
story, right?
right.
And based on the blurb on the cover, it sounds like it also is what a musical comedy called Come From Away is based on, which I've also never
Yeah,
heard of.
yeah. And the book is actually from 2018. It's not a brand new book that just came out. And he had to talk to a lot of people. He has a lot of names and a lot of information, but it's not overly just that. It is the people that are the story of it.
So how long did that go on? How long were people stranded
I
there?
I believe it was like 4 days, somewhere in there. I don't think 4 or 5 days at the max, I think, before they could get the planes out. But when you just think of serving food to all those people, and then just all the things that can happen if you thought about it yourself, if you were stranded somewhere intending to be home like in a couple of hours, or 4 or 5 hours even. Yeah, and you're stranded somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And not just anywhere, but Gander, Newfoundland.
yeah,
It's not like the height of
right. And
the
it's
height of activity in
yeah,
the world, right? Like
and
this
it's
is kind of
yeah, yeah, and it's
remote.
kind of funny because one of the towns that they're driving people to is Appleton. So so that always struck me as funny. Every time I would see it there, they would list that with several other cities, and it's like, yeah. But
And
yeah, I
so
think read this for the heartwarming nature of what this town. I'm sure there are other towns that would have done it, but it did happen there, and they did all of this, you
and
know?
this really happened. And so
Yeah,
this town, typically when the flights come through, they just stop and refuel and then they carry on.
right.
Usually the people on the flights don't intermix even with the
Yeah,
townsfolk, right?
and right, and they said, luckily, this was built to be like for an army base or air, so that it could accommodate planes and stuff there, and for the refueling.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Oh,
so they
fascinating.
happened to be the right place at the right time, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
This one's definitely on my holds list. It sounds so interesting and heartwarming and, what a
yeah,
great story. Therese,
yes,
thank
it
you for
is.
bringing all of these wonderful recommendations.
Oh, yeah,
Again, viewers, remember there's a used book sale, yay, coming up at the Manitowoc Public Library. That's going to be June 24th through June 26th. Therese, I really appreciate all the time that you spent
oh,
talking to us
sure.
about these books.
Yep, this was fun.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time on Coffee on the Coast. Bye, Therese.